Vice presidential candidates Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio U.S. Senator J.D. Vance, well, they just wrapped up their first and only debate before the elections. It aired right here on K9 TV. Now, the two running mates of former President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris held their own on stage tonight. They discussed some hot topics, including the Israel attack on Iran, immigration, and even the economy.
Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at.
Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim.
Well, the candidates made passionate arguments about policy positions and change, but tone, body language, and demeanor, that also spoke volumes on the stage. So we're going to bring in John Hart, communications professor with HPU, back again. So it's so good to have you tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So let's start off straight out the gate. How did they start going into this debate?
Well, I thought Walsh was more tentative than Vance. Vance, as you know, disastrous appearances in public photo ops and controlled events, I think showed why he was picked for this position. A much better debater than I presume many people thought he would be, and probably relieved a lot of Republican concerns about it.
He was very articulate, and you could see some differences in tonight's debate compared to the presidential debate weeks ago, back in September.
Absolutely. Well, I think the undecided voters who wanted more substance and more policy, they got that tonight. Some people might have been bored, but they got policy.
They did well reaching across the aisle to the voters.
Absolutely.
So, the last debate that we saw, I want to go back to the presidential debate, we saw a lot of eye contact with the camera specifically.
Right.
In this instance, you saw more eye contact with the candidates themselves. Did that make a strong point?
Well, I think, remember last time, Harris looking at the camera, Trump not looking at the camera. A little bit of a flip this time. Vance doing a much better job with with the camera. Walz looking a lot more at the moderators, and certainly looking at each other as we would see in an actual debate.
And they made some strong arguments. I think they did well, circling back to their presidential candidates throughout the arguments that they were making tonight.
Absolutely. The challenge is that you're running for assistant.
Yeah, that's true. John, I do want to point out that there was a point through the debate that there was a significant mic drop, and we do want to bring that up for our viewers.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
So there you see it. Right there is when the producers dropped the microphones, and they were losing a little bit of control there. So it showed to me that the candidates were kind of eager to explain themselves. But did that help them, or did that hurt them in this circumstance?
No, this is what the mic drop is for. The moderators at this point were clearly losing control. The candidates were talking over each other. Nothing was going to happen. This was the correct use of the drop. And if you noticed, when they came back, things were in order again. So this is why you have a mic drop in these situations.
Yeah, there are protocols that you have to follow in these circumstances. John, does this debate even matter in this general election?
Well, historically, presidential historians say only one time in modern history has the vice presidential choice actually mattered in the election. And so that means, of course, vice presidential debates matter even less. On the other hand, as we talked about before, I think this debate at least stopped some of the bleeding for Vance, who I think having had a series of very poor public appearances, is now going to, at least that hemorrhaging is going to stop.
You know, and my last question to you, John, and you know this one is coming. So who won?
Well, you know, this one I would argue is a statistical tie. If I score the first part of the debate for Vance and the second part for Walz. And so in the end, it's really close. Again, to me, statistical tie. If someone wants to argue Vance on points, I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah, and then this is great insight that we're hearing from you, and also great to see the candidates debate between each other. And you know, I just have to say that it's 35 days away from the general election. So don't forget, November 5th is the general election. We're going to have so much more coverage on this right here on Island News. So stick with us.